On this episode of AVWeek, paying attention to who was representing you in Congress. Yamaha has a brand new conference system, and China holds the very first trade show for AV in quite a while, with over almost 200,000 attending virtually. All that and more next on AV Week.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is AV Week, episode 472, recorded Friday, September 4th, 2020. Come together.
Support for AVNation is brought to you by
Extron, industry-leading technology backed by world-class support.
And by Peerless AV, driving technology through innovation.
This is AV Week, your weekly wrap-up of audio-visual news and information. My name is Tim Albright. I am your host. With us to discuss the news and information we have gathered this week. First and foremost, you know her as Melissa Dillman. She is from Starin Marketing. Welcome, ma'am.
Hello, sir.
And I think I'm legally obligated to mention the fact that Starin is also part of the Midwich Group. Not really, but it's a larger organization, and globally now, Melissa is global. God help us all. Also with us from Art Media Group is my buddy, Mr. Eugene Bobbio. How are you, sir?
Thank you, Tim. I'm doing well. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. I want to point out that if you're not watching the video, Eugene is making a very nice reference to our, I don't know. I didn't know Chadwick Boseman, but I certainly appreciated his work. So he's got a very nice background.
Lovely background. Thank you.
From Black Panther. So, all right, let's kick this off here with the first story. None of us, and I will say the royal none of us, have been to a trade show since quite possibly ISE, Integrated Systems Europe, happened in February this year. However, if you were in China this past week, you may have very well gone to a trade show. Pro Light and Sound, supposed to be happening in Germany. The Chinese extension of that happened it's August 18th and 19th August 21st through 24th of this week, of last week. 41,000 people attended this show in person at the end of August. Granted, it was in China. But the other part I want to point out here is the fact that it had over 100,000 virtual streams, actually 165,000 virtual streams. Eugene, I'll start with you on this. This is one of those things where we are all looking at trade shows and in-person events. Granted, we're recording this the first Friday of September. CEDIA Expo, residential side, happens in a couple of weeks, completely virtual, right? Taking a look at ISE, Integrated Systems Europe, Mr. Blackman and that team, they are planning on what they're calling a hybrid event. So in person in Barcelona, as well as having online. Do events like this that happened in China, and granted, China is ahead of at least the U.S. when it comes to the recovery and the second and third wave. What does this say to the industry as a whole, but also what does it say to the trade show and the live events industry as we all kind of, come out of this?
Interesting enough, I have quite a few people who, or friends who are in the business of doing rentals, equipment rental, and they are not doing well right now, right? Events, live events and hosting events and renting equipment is a thing of, I don't know if I can really say the past right now. But on the flip side, we are actually using technology in the way we've been selling it to clients and telling clients they should use technology to solve their problem. Now we are actually using technology to solve problems. So it's kind of like a give and take kind of thing. The other thing too is that this is a representation of how globalized everything has been. And we're just not really tapping into it, right? Now we have a much wider and bigger community of people to connect with, honestly. This is, again, the natural progression of technology.
Yeah. Melissa, one of the aspects of this show that I want to highlight here, and that is the industry and the community's use of an app called WeChat. If you're not familiar with this, it's owned by Facebook. And I mention this because, not to get into anything political, but there are certain government entities who want to ban this for whatever reason. Not going to get into why they want to ban it. I just know that they want to. However, there are entities that here in the States that use it to communicate with their teams overseas, but also obviously both in country in China, but also a large contingent of the AV industry in India use it to communicate, both between, inside their organizations as well as to their various AV colleagues. When we're looking at industry events like this, and we start looking at the international part, because let's be frank, this is again the first somewhat AV trade show to happen since February, and we start connecting each other, and we start connecting internationally. What can we do to make sure that I guess not necessarily the government doesn't interfere, but the government doesn't interfere in our business and in us trying to recover here and get back to business?
I'm not a big fan of using a WeChat. For us, on a global perspective, we use Zoom chat. And if your little light goes to red or that you're out of office, we can create a complete meltdown. To us, using the chat features in Zoom is equivalent to the water cooler. And it's really the only way we've survived in a global market as well as we have so far is because we're always in contact. So, if WeChat does the same thing and political, whatever. But I think we need more than that. In order to pull off a trade show and do it with a virtual component, then I need something within that show that allows me to engage. Yeah. And so that's sort of what I'm looking for is where's the engagement? I can tell you right now that you are not going to get me on a trade show floor with a mask. So no way I'm doing 10, 12 hours. No, not going to happen. So bless them. I saw the photos and I can't believe they showed up. But I'm certainly not walking a trade show or working a trade show in a mask.
In a mask, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of the aspects of it, though. And Eugene, back to your point about the live staging, these folks are, are in a world of hurt right now. The UK started something called the Red Alert. Here in the States, a lot of folks took part of that this week. Sure, who is one of our sponsors here at AVNation, they lit up their headquarters in Northern Illinois, as well as changed a number of their logos. I know other companies did as well. Yes, highlighting and kind of putting a spotlight on it is important. What else, though? And I'm going to ask, and either of you can answer this, but what else can we do? Because, yes, highlighting the fact that we make events, right? The live staging and events industry, these are the folks that make events happen every single day, with the exception of the last 6 months. But these are folks, these are men and women, these are dads and moms, these are, folks who have families that need to, quite frankly and quite bluntly, need to pay bills. Mm-hmm. So how do we help them do that in this environment when there are, at least here in the States, North America, there aren't events? Is it bringing them into events like we held a product launch for one of our sponsors, Atlas IED, end of January. We use live events people for that launch, right? So these are professionals who are camera people and operators and technical directors and folks like that. The DNC as well as the RNC, both sides here, they use live events folks to create their virtual events. So is that where we're using their skills in a creative non-event, or at least non-live event situation?
I will get a little political just for a little bit. When Hillary Clinton was running, she mentioned to the coal miners that coal is a thing of the past, right? And a lot of people took offense to that. Oh, how can she say that? That's jobs, that's families, that's this and that's that. But what she was actually selling was moving people forward right? Moving people forward with education, new skills, adapting to new technology. But unfortunately, her plans didn't necessarily come through. But I think we are unfortunately holding on to, well, this is what I'm used to. This is what my family does. This is what I know. This this and that in order to survive. And I do have absolute sympathy and empathy for those who are struggling. Right. For a bit, we were struggling. There was no job, so we were trying to find a way to make money. Who can we reach out to? Where is the industry going to go, right? And how can we follow that path? Thank God I have many other skills to help me carry, forward, and I have the mind to try to learn new things. But honestly, I think we're holding on to something that, technology is going to move. We have it. It's here for us to use. And unfortunately, COVID has made it necessary for us to actually utilize the tools that we have at hand. Now, there's the downside to that, as you've mentioned, is people being out of jobs and things changing and things of that nature. But it can also be seen as an opportunity to learn new trades, right? Or find new markets. Find new ways of honestly competing on the world stage, because we're not the only ones that are going through this motion. Other countries are as well. So are we going to, continue to cry about, and I don't mean to, criticize anyone who may find it challenging to find a new job or maybe feed their family. That's not my place. I'm more or less looking at, are we just going to complain and criticize and whine, or are we going to find new ways of being innovative, right? How can we move forward? How can we make money in a new way, right? It's going to get to a point where I don't think we're going to have any more options, right? There'll be no options left. And what choice do we have then?
Yeah, absolutely. All right, our next story actually comes to us from our friends over at Commercial Integrator and Adam Forziati. I always screwed up Adam's name. Sorry, man. And Adam's writing about how pro AV integrators need to start paying attention to the government. We're going to talk about just here in the U.S. I would suggest that you pay attention to your government as well, regardless of where you are. But for Forziati, this talks about and quotes actually a former TechNet CEO and former U.S. Congressman Rich White, who was on a recent NSCA webinar. And he says, quote unquote, "It's not the smartest person or most efficient or even necessarily the most ethical person who succeeds in Washington, D.C. Again, that's our wonderful government capital. But no matter who represents them, pro AV integrators aren't paying enough attention to politics." Now, there's a couple here, and this is not, I'm not touching the third rail. I grew up in broadcasting, and excuse me, there are a couple things you don't touch. One is politics, the other one is religion, and I honestly can't remember the third one. It was probably sports, honestly. Money, man, no, you can talk about money. Again, not talking about a political party here necessarily. But integrators need to pay attention to who, not only who's representing them, right? And unless you're AVI SPL or you're diversified, most likely you've got one representative that represents the region that you are impacting. But there's a couple things happening in Congress in DC. Number one, over the last 15 years, 20 years, the U.S. government en masse has sold off an awfully valuable piece of property that the integration industry utilizes that you'll never see, and that is the wireless spectrum. Okay? They have sold it off in large chunks. Now, right now, the latest one, because of the Sprint and T-Mobile merger, is actually not necessarily being given back. It's actually going to Dish Network, completely separate issue. But that frequency that Sprint bought and had as part of their portfolio, they have to sell as part of this merger package. But the other part is not just taxes, but also the relief that's happening, that's trying to find its way through Congress. Yes, they did a yeoman's work in March and got a bunch of money to a bunch of people. We can argue and we can probably dissect the number of articles about the bad parts of that, right? The billions of dollars that went places that probably shouldn't have. They're trying to work on that now. That is being stalled. And again, your representative is who you need to call and complain to. But Melissa, the one thing that, with the exception of NSCA, and NSCA does a really good job, especially locally, at the state level of informing their members what's happening as far as legislation. What can and what should integrators do to make sure that they're being represented and their interests are being represented both at the State House as well as in DC?
That's a great question, Tim. If only I had an opinion. Here,
grab a cup of coffee, folks.
I've got an idea. What if integrators on the whole formed a trade association who stood up and monitored legislation for their betterment? It's a crazy idea, but we should try it. Look, integrators right now have their hands full. They're trying to keep their heads above water just like the rest. I don't know that they have a lot of time to dedicate to stay current on what's happening with current legislation. I really believe that belongs to a body that supports the industry. So that's where I would go with it.
Go ahead, Eugene.
Are you guys familiar with ALEC?
No.
The American Legislative Exchange Council. Okay, that's where it lands. Now, this is a 501c company that runs independently of government. However, works hand in glove with Congress and lawmakers. And some of the companies that you'll find there is Apple, Google, Pfizer. Alibaba joined a couple of years ago, if I remember. So it's basically an organization that is the convergence of both lawmakers and CEOs and companies that represent particular industries. This is where you will find communication and big data companies that we're speaking of, the airwaves, right? So this is where decisions are made and friends are created and policies are put into place. And unfortunately, our particular industry is a subgroup of communication, a subgroup of big data, right? We have a very unique position when it comes to big companies that are actually represented in Congress. And the great thing is that these companies actually help change laws, right? From food,
They help write laws. They help write laws.
Yes, exactly. They help write laws. What goes into our bodies, what we see on television, what companies are able to merge, not merge, what they do with our private information and what they don't do with our private information. So all of this decision is in actuality being made behind the scene and without, in most cases, our influence. So it makes it difficult for us now to really take this position of speaking to our representatives, right? Because honestly, we don't longer have representatives. We just have corporations representing themselves in a way and representing consumers. So we're technically consumers. They represent consumers, not representatives. So if anything, I think that Extron, Crestron, these manufacturers who know our pulse and how we're doing in this industry, what we're finding difficult in maybe getting together, they are the ones that should honestly join ALEC and represent us. So when the big companies, AT&T and Google and the rest of them, are trying to set something up, they have a place at the table to actually speak up for us. Right now, we don't have a representation, right? Back in the days when I used to do a lot of bid, we would always fall under electricians or IT, right?
Yeah.
We don't really have our own category per se. And so we're not really defined in that way. And in order for us to, to make changes, we'll unfortunately have to depend on a lot of the big manufacturers who are big enough to step up to the plate and join the American Legislative Exchange Council.
And the more you described it, I have heard of it, because there have been a number of reports from 60 Minutes and other organizations that have looked into it, not on the federal level, but on the local level, from a negative standpoint, just for the record. So if you go on YouTube and you type in that, there will be some very hard-hitting pieces about the dark side of ALEC, right?
Oh, yeah, indeed. Yes, I mean, it is, when you look at it, it really, our interest, once again, is being pushed down way towards the back, and corporations are stepping up and replacing, us in that way. And it is a negative, but unfortunately, our voice have become so small that I think we just got to play the game. So yes, there's a lot of negative stories about ALEC, and quite frankly, I don't believe in ALEC. I think it's a horrible, setup. We should have direct representations. Our interest should not be sidelined for lobbyists and special interests. But unfortunately, that is the world and that we are living in. And in order for us to get forward, like you said, you started off the story by saying that, politics is one of those things where, it's like a taboo you don't discuss, right? Or religion you don't discuss, right? And so that is part of why I guess we don't really focus very much on it, because it is something that we are uncomfortable talking about at the workplace. And the more honestly, I think I don't know who started that, saying that politics is, we shouldn't discuss politics or religion. I think the person that perhaps started that saying probably is working for the other side, right? because when we do discuss politics, right, I think we have better representations because we share our grief, our anger, and our interests, and they're forced to listen. But when we keep it, kind of hidden like that, I don't discuss politics, I'm not going to talk about this and talk about that, then yes, the big organizations, right, they're okay discussing politics because they are part of it, and they are the ones now taking over, and they can't, So I don't think. Look, I think there's a way for us all to come together and have a decent moral conversations about things that maybe we agree or disagree on, but it should not. We should not be throwing the baby out with the bathwater and not discuss politics and religion, because it's just, we live in it. Yeah. Why can we not talk about it?
Tim, there's your next show, Politics and Religion.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll get right on that one. All right, last story here comes to us from our friends over at AV Network. Yamaha this week, they have debuted their Adecia enterprise audio system. This is an all-in-one system. You can take a look at the video that Yamaha posted on SCN's website. The one thing about this is an entirely new ecosystem for them, for Yamaha. It is not brand spanking new necessarily. It is a ceiling microphone system. It's very possible that it looks and acts like some other ceiling microphone systems that may or may not be have patents, or may or may not be in the legal system over patents. I'll let you and the lawyers decide that. But Melissa, here I want to start with you on this. When it comes to systems like this, and there are a couple others out there that are all-in-one ecosystems. Sure, again, sponsor here, their ceiling microphone isn't necessarily an all-in-one ecosystem, but Clear One is STEM Audio has some as well. What are some of the benefits, but also what are some of the drawbacks of an all-in-one kind of package deal where you're kind of one company is providing the entire system there?
So I like the entire system as an ecosystem. I'm good with that. Components that work together, that are planning to work together, that's great. I'm all in. The problem I run into is how much control do I have to tweak the system? Because for me, it's hard to find a room that can automatically be set and meet everybody's expectations. So this new product from Yamaha has been 10 years in the making. So they've been working on this product for 10 years. I'm anxious. We did get a sneak peek. I'm anxious to see how much leverage they give us, because you can't get any of us to agree that what the room sounds like, right? We're never going to be happy unless we can tweak. So I really want to be able to do that. But as far as having packages working together, everything is set up to work with each other, I'm good with that.
All right. Eugene, same kind of question. What do we think about all-in-one systems like this?
First of all, Yamaha, I love Yamaha. I've been using Yamaha for a very long time. I have a piano that's Yamaha. I started out in the recording studios with a JV 1080 Yamaha. My surround sound is Yamaha. So, Yamaha honestly really is a great company in my personal opinion. Everything I've purchased Yamaha has been really great. And, I can't say I've actually used Yamaha in a commercial, integration. So this should be very interesting. But to your point, Melissa, is that, Yamaha does claim that, their microphones, you don't need to manually adjust the lobes because they work for you, right? So, is that a good thing or is that a bad thing? I don't know. But it's a bad thing for people like myself that, make money on commissioning, because now we just throw it up there and we walk away, right? But that's where, the industry really is going, is simple Zoom rooms. So they're trying to corner a market, or they're seeing an opportunity to have that one size fit all solution. Actually, I would be very interested in seeing what this sounds like.
Yeah, I am too. And remind folks that Yamaha a number of years ago purchased Revo Labs, which you would assume that some of that technology is built into some of these microphones, as well as Yamaha's existing really smart engineers. So, absolutely. All right, guys, that's going to do it for us. Thank you both so much, Melissa Dillman from Starin. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Tim. Always a pleasure.
And how do people get a hold of you or Starin Marketing?
Hey, you know what? You can find me and my team at Team Zoom at starin.biz.
All right, very good. Eugene, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Tim, for having me. It's been fun.
And how do people get a hold of you or Art Media?
Straight on our website, artmediacorp.com, and you'll find contact information there.
All right, very good. For Tim Albright, don't follow me on the Twitters, but go by the website if you would, please. AVNation.tv. That's AVNation.tv. You'll find this program and a host of others. While you're there, two things. Check out our underwriter section. These are the folks who help us financially, help us bring you AVWeek and ResiWeek and a whole lot more. And we have a brand new webinar coming down the pipeline this Thursday with the guys from LG and Savvy Control. Savvy 3 came out. Very interesting. They are really doing some interesting things, especially in the hospitality and the restaurant part for control and automation, as well as making sure that the end user customer experience is really kind of up there. So you can check that out on our website as well and sign up for that. So all that and more at AVNation.tv. That's AVNation.tv. Thanks so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. And that's all the time we have for AV Week.